Florida doesn't always end with neon lights and the sound of waves. There are small places in this state that never truly died, but never fully lived either. These towns once had clear purposes, as trading centers, military outposts, ideal settlements, or closed communities, then slowly lost their reason to exist. What remains isn't legend, but empty space left untouched by time. This list doesn't begin with terror, but with absence. From towns that feel almost normal, to ones that feel wrong from the very first step. Hidden in Sumter County, Center Hill is a small town with a population of around 1,400 people, still maintaining the rhythm of rural Florida life. Founded in the 19th century as an agricultural hub, the town was once known for its fertile apple and citrus groves. Old buildings, including wooden homes and church structures, still stand, reminding visitors of a simpler past. Although it is still inhabited, parts of the town feel quiet, especially at night. Center Hill also has crime records preserved in local archives, occasionally giving rise to mysterious stories among residents. Located near waterways and forests, the natural surroundings add to its sense of isolation. The area saw limited development in the early 2000s, but most residents chose to live in nearby larger towns, leaving some parts of Center Hill feeling subdued without losing its status as an active community. Just a few miles from Center Hill, Island Grove feels like a quieter, younger sibling. With a population of around 450, the town has almost entirely preserved its rural Florida character, where narrow paved roads and old wooden houses greet anyone passing through. In the past, Island Grove grew thanks to a railroad line that connected it to other agricultural towns, making it a small center for citrus and local farm trade. Today, many old buildings still stand, though some appear increasingly abandoned, creating a sense of quiet that contrasts with the small community that remains. A mysterious atmosphere is often mentioned by locals, especially around the former railroad paths and the forests surrounding the village. Then there is Micanopy, a small town often described as classic Florida. With a population of about 700 people, Micanopy preserves its historic charm through well-maintained 19th century buildings and brick-lined streets that evoke nostalgia. Once developed as a center for agriculture and local trade, the town is now better known for its antique shops and small cafes. Micanopy has also attracted attention from filmmakers. It served as a primary filming location for Doc Hollywood, 1991, starring Michael J. Fox, using its real streets and buildings to portray a quiet, classic American small town. In addition, Micanopy inspired parts of the setting in Cross Creek, 1983, by Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings, which depicts rural Florida life with rich historical detail. From the rural charm of Micanopy, the journey continues to Hopewell, a small town in St. Johns County that carries a quiet yet history-filled atmosphere. With a very small population, much of the area is now home to only a few families, making certain corners of the town feel empty and still. Hopewell emerged as a farming community in the 19th century and once grew around its local church and school, which served as the center of community life. The town witnessed many shifts in rural Florida's economy, including the transition from small-scale farming to commercial agriculture, as well as the steady migration of younger residents to nearby cities. Hopewell once played an important role in organizing social and religious life in St. Johns County, and several old buildings still stand as reminders of that past. Population decline has left the town quiet, but the history embedded in its streets gives Hopewell a clear identity. setting it apart from places that have been completely abandoned. While Hopewell still retains a faint rural pulse, Hague feels like a place slowly forgotten by time. This small town in Alachua County grew not from crowds, but from a railroad that once ran directly through its center. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Hague depended on citrus farming and agricultural goods shipped out by rail. When the trains stopped running, the town's economic rhythm weakened with them. Today, Hague's population has dwindled to just a few hundred people. Old wooden buildings and remnants of railroad infrastructure still stand, motionless in the wide rural landscape. Rather than collapsing completely, Hague quietly shrank as its economic purpose faded. Its silence was not caused by a single disaster, but by the gradual loss of a reason to grow. Unlike Hague, which faded slowly, Croom represents a Florida town that truly lost its function. Located in Hernando County, the area developed in the late 19th century as a center for lumber and turpentine production, supported by the dense pine forests around it. Life in Croom depended entirely on rail transport and forest-based industries, two factors that ultimately sealed its fate. When timber resources declined and the turpentine industry collapsed in the early 20th century, economic activity stopped. Residents left, buildings were abandoned, and Croom gradually became a ghost town. Today, the former town site lies within Withlacoochee State Forest, marked by visible remnants such as building foundations, old bridges, and a small cemetery. No major disaster destroyed Croom. The town vanished for one simple reason. When the resources ran out, there was no reason left to stay. Where Croom collapsed after its forests were exhausted, Sumica is a story of a small town that lived and died entirely by the lumber and sawmill industry. Located in Polk County, Sumica developed in the early 20th century as a worker settlement surrounding a large sawmill. For several decades, the town had worker housing, a general store, and small rail lines that supported daily life. However, when nearby timber resources began to run out and the mill shut down, Sumica lost its only reason to exist. There was no economic diversification and no large-scale agriculture to replace the timber industry. Residents left, and Sumica was abandoned in a relatively short time. Today, Sumica is barely recognizable as a town. What remains are building foundations, remnants of rail lines, and traces of settlement hidden among Central Florida's vegetation. Unlike Sumica, which was born from industry, Slavia stands as a rare social experiment in Central Florida. Located in Seminole County, Slavia was founded in the early 20th century by Slovak immigrants who sought to build a self-sufficient community based on agriculture and shared culture. Over time, younger generations began leaving Slavia in search of economic opportunities in larger cities. No single dramatic event destroyed the town. Instead, it faded through gradual assimilation. Today, Slavia is not completely empty, but traces of its former town life have nearly vanished. Notably, the Slovak Community Cemetery remains the clearest marker that a town with a strong identity once stood here. Moving west, Centralia offers another example of how a small community can shrink without a dramatic collapse, yet still retain a sense of history. Located in Clay County, Centralia is not a full ghost town. It is closer to a small settlement that remains on the map, even though its social and economic life has changed drastically since the early 20th century. Originally, Centralia developed as a rural farming area with scattered fields and homes. Rather than rising and falling with a single industry or railroad, Centralia changed as population patterns shifted and economic activity moved to larger nearby towns. Today, Centralia is still inhabited, but its quiet rural atmosphere makes it feel nearly still, leaving behind subtle yet tangible traces of its past. The name Fort Drum often creates the impression of a military base or an old fort, but in reality, this small community in Okeechobee County was never a military post. The name comes from the Fort Drum Cattle Ranch, one of the largest and oldest cattle ranches in Florida, which has shaped the identity of the area since the early 20th century. Fort Drum developed as a rural community supporting the cattle industry, with scattered homes and wide distances between settlements. Its population is relatively small and spread out, making Fort Drum feel quieter than many other small towns. There is no clear town center and no row of old shops, only wide open land, long roads, and minimal activity. Despite its name, there are no historic fort structures or military installations in the area. At the meeting point of the Suwannee River and the Withlacoochee River, Ellaville once stood as a busy industrial town in Suwannee County. From the late 19th to the early 20th century, the town grew rapidly thanks to the lumber and sawmill industries, complete with hotels, shops, schools, and railroad lines. Its strategic riverfront location made Ellaville a regional economic hub at the time. That prosperity did not last. When the timber industry declined and transportation routes shifted, economic activity came to a halt. Residents left, buildings were abandoned, and Ellaville became a full ghost town. Today, only building foundations, old cemeteries, and footpaths slowly reclaimed by vegetation remain. The silence is total. No active community, no modern function, making Ellaville one of the clearest examples of how a small Florida town can completely vanish from everyday life. Eldora is one of the smaller ghost towns in Volusia County, located not far from the St. Johns River, an important waterway for early Florida settlements. The town developed in the late 19th century as an agricultural community, with small farms and local trade relying on the river for transportation access. Unlike major industrial towns, Eldora grew modestly, without large factories or extensive rail networks. Eldora's decline happened gradually, as land transportation replaced river routes and economic centers shifted to larger towns. Eldora lost its relevance. Residents moved away, public services stopped, and buildings were abandoned. Today, Eldora leaves almost no clear physical trace of having once been a town. Unlike Eldora, which vanished almost without a trace, White City in St. Lucie County is an example of a small Florida town that fell hard, but never completely disappeared. The town grew rapidly in the early 1920s during the Florida land boom, promoted as an ideal community with white-painted homes and a bright future. Many land buyers arrived driven by quick speculation rather than long-term plans. When the land boom collapsed in 1926, followed by major storms and the impact of the 1928 Okeechobee hurricane, most developments failed entirely. Homes were abandoned, projects stalled, and White City became a half-empty settlement. The population dropped sharply, and for years, the town stood as a clear example of land speculation gone wrong. White City still exists today as an unincorporated community, but traces of its collapse remain visible in its layout and older buildings. Its eerie atmosphere comes from the legacy of large-scale failure lingering within a place that continues to function only halfway. Located on Egmont Key, a small island at the mouth of Tampa Bay, Fort Dade is a former military installation that has been completely abandoned. Built in the late 19th century as part of the United States Coastal Defense System, Fort Dade once housed hundreds of soldiers, complete with barracks, a hospital, and artillery batteries facing the Gulf of Mexico. Beyond its military role, the island also served an important health function. Fort Dade's hospital was used to quarantine American soldiers returning from Cuba, especially after the Spanish-American War, to prevent the spread of infectious diseases before they re-entered mainland Florida. This practice was common at a time when medical knowledge and public health systems were still limited. After defense technology advanced and the base was closed in the early 20th century, the buildings were left empty. Today, Fort Dade lies within Egmont Key State Park and can only be accessed by boat. Unlike previous towns that declined due to economic or industrial collapse, Cassadaga in Volusia County has survived precisely because of its unique identity. Founded in the late 19th century, Cassadaga is known as a spiritualist community where mediums and spiritual practitioners live and openly practice their beliefs. To this day, the town remains inhabited and maintains its own local governance. Cassadaga has never been a ghost town. Its population is small, its streets are quiet, and many historic buildings, including an old hotel and spiritualist places of worship, are still in use. Officially recognized as a spiritualist camp, Cassadaga allows medium readings to be conducted legally and openly, rather than in secrecy. The town's eerie aura does not come from abandoned structures, but from spiritual activity that is treated as a normal part of everyday life.